strangers and you just don't know what's going on with people. That was a horrific night. I lost it. It justifies my behavior at all. We just gotta be nice to each other, man.
Something has fundamentally changed in Will Smith, and Hollywood is absolutely terrified. The man who slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars isn't the same person we're seeing now. There's been an awakening, a transformation that nobody in the entertainment industry saw coming. And what he's starting to reveal about how Hollywood really operates has executives, publicists, and power players scrambling to contain the damage. Because when a $9 billion box office titan starts telling the truth, after decades of playing the game, the entire system starts to crack. So before we dive into what Will is exposing and why it has Hollywood in crisis mode, let me set something straight. This isn't about the slap anymore. This isn't about Chris Rock or Jada or the Oscars. This is about what happened after, the isolation, the silence, the industry turning its back on someone who made them billions, and how that rejection forced Will Smith to finally see the machine he'd been serving for 30 years. What he's discovered in that darkness is Hollywood's worst nightmare. Let's start with the moment everything changed. The slap that broke the spell. March 27, 2022, the 94th Academy Awards. Will Smith walked onto that stage and slapped Chris Rock in front of 15 million viewers worldwide. You've seen the footage 1,000 times. The calm walk, the sharp contact, the profanity from his seat.
Yeah.
It was a G.I. Jane jump.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth!
I'm going to, okay?
The stunned silence. Then, less than an hour later, the standing ovation when he won Best Actor. But here's what nobody talks about. In that moment when Will's hand connected with Chris Rock's face, something else shattered. The carefully constructed image Will had maintained for 3 decades exploded. The Fresh Prince, the family man, the beloved star who only did uplifting movies, the guy who never caused controversy, the avatar he'd been performing as for so long that he'd forgotten there was a real person underneath. That slap was the avatar malfunctioning. It was 30 years of performance, pressure, and pretending colliding with one moment of raw, unfiltered emotion. And when the mask cracked that badly, that publicly, there was no putting it back together. Jim Carrey understood this immediately. 3 days after the Oscars, he appeared on CBS Mornings and said something profound.
I was sickened. I was sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse.
He talked about how Will had created an avatar, a constructed identity that he'd maintained for decades. And when Chris Rock's joke threatened that avatar, Will didn't defend his wife. He defended the illusion. But here's what Jim didn't know at the time. That slap didn't just damage Will's image, it destroyed it completely. And in destroying it, it forced Will to confront something he'd been avoiding his entire career: the question of who he actually was when he stopped performing. The industry's brutal response. The immediate aftermath was swift and savage. Will resigned from the Academy on April 1st, 2022. A week later, they banned him from attending any Academy events for 10 years.
Some news just coming in. Let's go straight to that. Actor Will Smith is resigning now from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts.
Netflix put his projects on pause. Apple released Emancipation with minimal promotion. His Q score, which measures celebrity appeal, crashed from 39 to 19 in less than 2 years. But the real punishment was quieter and more devastating. The phone calls that stopped coming, the meetings that got canceled, the projects that mysteriously fell through. Hollywood didn't destroy Will Smith publicly. They just stopped calling. An anonymous studio executive told Variety in March 2023, everyone was waiting to see who would blink first. It isn't so much what he did, it was what he did after. That phrase haunted Will, because what he did after was stay at the ceremony, accept his Oscar, give an emotional speech, dance at the after party. In Hollywood's eyes, he should have been immediately removed, arrested even. Instead, he acted like someone who felt entitled to continue celebrating despite committing assault on live television. The industry saw arrogance, but Will has since revealed in interviews that he was dissociating. operating on autopilot, so deep in performance mode that he couldn't break character even after doing something that horrified him. And that realization became the catalyst for everything that followed. The wilderness period. From April 2022 to early 2024, Will Smith essentially disappeared. No major interviews, no public appearances beyond contractual obligations, no social media presence to speak of. He retreated into what he later described as the darkest period of my life. But something was happening during that isolation, something Hollywood didn't anticipate. Will was waking up. He started working with therapists, spiritual advisors, and people outside the entertainment industry. He began meditating for hours every day, reading philosophy, examining his entire life with brutal honesty. And what he discovered disturbed him deeply. In a private conversation that later leaked to industry insiders, Will reportedly said, "I've been performing since I was 12 years old. I don't know who I am when I'm not trying to make people love me." That's a devastating admission from someone who's been one of the biggest stars on the planet for 30 years. But it gets deeper. Will started tracing back the origins of his need for approval, his relationship with his father, the pressure of being the family's main breadwinner as a teenager, the early success that taught him love equals applause, the machine that took a talented kid from West Philadelphia and turned him into a product. And here's where it gets really interesting. Will began questioning everything about how Hollywood operates. The image management, the publicist-approved answers, the carefully curated social media presence, the performance of authenticity that's actually just another layer of inauthenticity. He looked at his marriage to Jada and realized they'd been performing their relationship for the public while living completely separate lives since 2016. He looked at his career choices and realized he'd been chasing approval and awards rather than artistic fulfillment. He looked at his entire public persona and recognized it as a prison he'd built for himself. This is the awakening that terrifies Hollywood, because a star having a breakdown is manageable. A star getting canceled is expected, but a star waking up and seeing the system clearly, that's dangerous. Jada's revelation accelerates the awakening. Then came October 2023. Jada Pinkett Smith started promoting her memoir, Worthy, and she dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. She and Will had been separated since 2016. This revelation hit different for several reasons. First, it meant the famous Red Table Talk episode where they discussed her entanglement with August Alsina had been staged. They were performing couples therapy for the public while not even being together. Second, it meant Will slapped Chris Rock to defend a woman who hadn't been his wife in any traditional sense for 6 years.
First time about that behind-the-scenes chaos after Will Smith slapped Chris Rock on stage.
He committed assault on live television to protect an illusion. Third, and most importantly for Will's awakening, it proved that his entire life had become a performance. His marriage, his family, his happiness. All of it carefully managed for public consumption, while reality was something completely different. Industry insiders report that Jada's revelations actually accelerated Will's transformation rather than devastating him, because they confirmed what he'd already been discovering in therapy. His whole life had been built on maintaining images rather than living authentically. One source close to Will told Page 6 in late 2023, "He's not angry at Jada, he's grateful. She freed him from having to maintain the lie." That's when Hollywood really started to worry. The lawsuit that changed everything. Just when it seemed like Will might be finding peace in his awakening, another crisis emerged. In early 2025, violinist Brian King Joseph filed a lawsuit alleging sexual harassment, retaliation, and wrongful termination connected to Will's tour. The allegations were serious. Joseph claimed someone unlawfully entered his hotel room in Las Vegas, leaving HIV medication, hospital discharge papers, and a handwritten note suggesting a planned sexual encounter. When he reported this to Will's management team, he was allegedly fired and told he was lying. Will's legal team immediately denied all allegations, calling them false, baseless, and reckless. But here's what's interesting about Will's response compared to how old Will would have handled it. old Will would have unleashed an army of publicists, planted stories in friendly media outlets, gone on the offensive with carefully crafted statements designed to destroy the accuser's credibility. The full Hollywood machine would have activated. New Will did something different. He released a simple statement through his lawyers and then stayed silent. No media tour, no friendly interview with Oprah, no calculated image rehabilitation campaign. Industry insiders were baffled. One publicist told The Hollywood Reporter, "It's like he doesn't care about managing his image anymore. That's not the Will Smith we know." Exactly, because he's not that Will Smith anymore. The philosophy of the awakening. So what exactly has Will discovered that has Hollywood so concerned? Based on his private conversations that have leaked, his sparse public statements, and reports from people in his inner circle, we can piece together the philosophy driving his transformation. First principle: authenticity over approval. Will has reportedly told friends that he spent 30 years trying to be loved by everyone, and it nearly destroyed him. The slap was the result of that pressure finally exploding. Now, he's committed to being authentic, even if it means being less liked. Second principle: the avatar must die. Will has studied Buddhist philosophy, particularly the concept of ego death and the false self. He's come to see his celebrity persona as a character he played that had nothing to do with who he actually is, and he's actively working to kill that character. Third principle: Hollywood is a machine that consumes souls. This is the part that terrifies the industry. Will has started talking privately about how the entertainment system is designed to turn human beings into products, how it rewards performance over authenticity, how it punishes anyone who refuses to play the game. Fourth principle: success measured by external validation is hollow. Will made $9 billion at the box office. He won an Oscar. He achieved everything Hollywood defines as success, and it left him empty because he'd abandoned himself to get there. Fifth principle: the only way out is through. Will has reportedly said he's not trying to rebuild his career the way it was. He's trying to build something completely different, a life based on truth rather than image. These principles represent everything Hollywood fears because they directly challenge the system that creates and maintains stars. Bad Boys Ride or Die, the test case. In June 2024, Bad Boys Ride or Die was released as the test case for Will's comeback. Sony invested $100 million in production, and the industry watched closely to see if audiences were ready to forgive him. The results were complicated. The film opened with $56 million domestically and went on to earn $405 million worldwide. Solid numbers, but notably lower than Bad Boys for Life, which made $426 million in 2020. But here's what's fascinating. Will approached the promotion of this film differently than any movie he'd ever done before.
Growing up, Will Smith was always one of my favorite actors and artists. I mean, to this day, the Men in Black movies are some of my personal favorites.
In interviews, he was more subdued, more thoughtful, less performative. He didn't crack jokes every 5 seconds. He didn't turn on the Fresh Prince charm. He was just present. Entertainment journalists noticed the difference immediately. One reporter who interviewed him for the press tour told Variety, "It was unsettling. He wasn't giving me the Will Smith I expected. He was giving me a real person, having a real conversation." The movie did well enough to prove Will could still draw audiences in the right context, but it also proved something more important to Will. He didn't need the avatar to be successful. He could show up as himself, and it would work. That realization was liberating and terrifying for an industry built on manufactured personas. Hollywood's fear, the domino effect. So why is Hollywood treating Will's awakening as a worst-case scenario? Because of the domino effect. Will Smith isn't just any celebrity. He's one of the most successful stars in history. If he starts publicly deconstructing the system, starts talking openly about how the machine works, starts encouraging other celebrities to choose authenticity over image management, the whole house of cards could collapse. Think about it. How many other A-list celebrities are trapped in the same prison Will just escaped from? Performing happiness they don't feel, maintaining relationships that ended years ago, pretending to be characters the public wants rather than who they actually are. Jim Carrey walked away from Hollywood for similar reasons. Dave Chappelle fled to Africa. But they were never as big as Will Smith. They never had as much invested in them by the system. When Will starts telling the truth about how it really works, people listen, and Hollywood can't afford for people to listen. Industry insiders are already reporting ripple effects. Younger celebrities are starting to question the publicist-approved version of fame. Some are pushing back against image management teams. Others are choosing smaller, more authentic projects over blockbuster paydays. One young actor told Rolling Stone in late 2024, "Will Smith showed me you can survive the machine turning on you. You can choose truth and still exist on the other side." That's the nightmare scenario for Hollywood. Stars realizing they don't need the machine as much as the machine needs them. The spiritual dimension. Will's awakening has a deeply spiritual component that makes it even more threatening to Hollywood's materialistic value system.
In this business, you got to be able to have people disrespecting you. And you got to smile and you got to pretend like that's okay.
He's been studying with various spiritual teachers, practicing meditation intensively, and exploring concepts that directly contradict everything the entertainment industry represents. One teacher, Will, has worked with specializes in what's called ego death, the process of recognizing that your sense of self is largely an illusion constructed by society, family, and culture. For someone like Will, whose entire identity was built on being a beloved celebrity, this is radical territory. In leaked audio from a private spiritual retreat Will attended in early 2024, he reportedly said, "I thought I was Will Smith, but Will Smith is just a character I played so convincingly that I forgot I was acting. The question I'm asking now is, who am I when I'm not performing Will Smith?" That's a terrifying question for Hollywood, because the entire industry is built on the opposite premise. They need celebrities to believe they are their public personas. They need stars to stay trapped in the performance, because that's what's marketable. A spiritually awakened celebrity who sees through the illusion and refuses to play the game is a liability. They can't be controlled. They can't be managed. They can't be predicted. The financial dimension. Here's something most people don't realize. Will Smith's awakening has serious financial implications for hundreds of people whose livelihoods depend on him staying in the game. His publicist's firm, his manager's percentage, his agent's commission, the production companies with deals based on his star power, the brands that paid for endorsements, the studios with projects in development. All of these entities have a financial interest in Will maintaining his commercial viability. When Will started his awakening journey and stopped prioritizing image management, it created panic in these circles. One entertainment lawyer told The Hollywood Reporter, "You have to understand, Will Smith is a corporation. Dozens of people depend on him for their income. When he starts prioritizing spiritual growth over commercial appeal, it affects everyone." But here's what makes this different from a typical celebrity breakdown. Will has enough money to never work again. His net worth is estimated at over $350 million. He doesn't need Hollywood. He doesn't need the next movie deal. He doesn't need to maintain his Q score. That financial independence gives him power. Hollywood can't counter. They can't threaten him with poverty. They can't dangle paychecks to control his behavior. They can't manipulate him through financial pressure. He's free, and that freedom is precisely what makes him dangerous. The media dimension. Another fascinating aspect of Will's awakening is how he's handling media. Old Will did hundreds of interviews per project. He was charming, funny, quotable, and gave journalists exactly what they needed for their stories. New Will barely speaks to traditional media. When he does, he's thoughtful, measured, and refuses to play the promotional game. He won't give sound bites. He won't perform enthusiasm for products he doesn't believe in. He won't pretend to be excited about projects that are just paychecks. This has created a strange dynamic. Entertainment media needs Will Smith more than Will Smith needs entertainment media. He can reach millions of people directly through social media if he wants to. He doesn't need news, or access. Hollywood to maintain relevance. But entertainment media needs celebrities like Will to generate content and drive traffic. When he refuses to play the game, it disrupts their entire ecosystem. One entertainment journalist told Variety in frustration, "He won't give us the Will Smith we want. He just gives us this evolved person who's not particularly interesting for clickbait headlines." Translation: he won't perform for them anymore, and they don't know how to handle it. The generational divide. Interestingly, Will's awakening is resonating differently across generations.
That was kind of generally accepted in Hollywood that black people don't translate globally.
Older industry veterans see it as a cautionary tale and proof that you can't fight the system. Younger entertainers see it as inspiration and proof that you can survive choosing authenticity. Gen Z celebrities in particular are watching Will's journey closely. They grew up in a different media environment where authenticity is valued more than polish. They've seen too many manufactured pop stars crash and burn. They're looking for a different path. Will's awakening offers them a blueprint, not for how to be a successful celebrity the traditional way, but for how to survive the machine trying to turn you into a product. One young actress told Teen Vogue, "Will Smith slapped someone on live TV, got canceled by Hollywood, lost millions, and somehow came out the other side more at peace than he's ever been. That's more inspiring than any comeback story Hollywood would have written for him." That sentiment is spreading, and Hollywood is terrified of it spreading further. The accountability dimension. One of the most powerful aspects of Will's awakening is his willingness to take accountability without performing victimhood or redemption. He's not trying to be rehabilitated in the public eye. He's not asking for forgiveness. He's simply acknowledging what he did and moving forward. This is radically different from the typical celebrity apology tour. Usually, when a star screws up, they follow a specific script: apologize publicly, do a tearful interview with a sympathetic journalist, demonstrate contrition, show they've learned, perform rehabilitation. Will did none of that. He released a brief apology to Chris Rock via Instagram. He resigned from the Academy. Then he went silent and did his internal work privately. He didn't try to manage public perception of his journey. This approach confused Hollywood because it didn't follow the playbook. Without the performance of redemption, how could audiences know they were supposed to forgive him? Without the carefully staged comeback narrative, how could he rebuild his brand? But Will has made it clear he's not interested in rebuilding his brand. He's interested in building an authentic life, and that's a story Hollywood doesn't know how to sell. The Chris Rock dimension. It's worth addressing Chris Rock's response to all of this because it adds another layer to the complexity. In his Netflix special Selective Outrage, Chris unpacked the slap with brutal honesty.
I have rooted for Will Smith my whole life. I root for this motherfucker, okay?
He pointed out that Will's violence wasn't really about the joke. It was about unresolved personal issues and misdirected anger. But Chris also said something interesting. He acknowledged that while he has every right to be angry about what happened, he also recognizes that Will was going through something profound that night. The slap was a symptom of a man breaking down, not just a man acting out. Will has reportedly tried to reach out to Chris multiple times since the incident, not to make excuses or manage the narrative, but simply to apologize human to human. According to reports, Chris isn't ready to have that conversation yet, and Will respects that. This dynamic is important because it shows Will's awakening isn't about dodging accountability. It's about recognizing that true accountability happens in private, between the people actually affected, not in public, through staged apologies designed for PR purposes. Hollywood doesn't know what to do with that kind of genuine accountability. The system is built on managing public perception, not facilitating genuine healing. The future. What comes next? So where is this all heading? Industry insiders are genuinely uncertain about Will's future trajectory, and that uncertainty is part of what makes them nervous. Scenario 1. Will continues his spiritual journey and gradually steps away from mainstream Hollywood. He does smaller, more personal projects that interest him artistically rather than commercially. He becomes a character actor rather than a leading man. He prioritizes peace over profit. Scenario 2. Will completes his awakening journey and returns to Hollywood on his own terms. He He becomes an even bigger star because his authenticity resonates with audiences tired of manufactured celebrities. He changes the industry from within by modeling a different approach to fame. Scenario 3. Will becomes a vocal critic of the Hollywood system. He starts speaking publicly about how the machine operates, how it damages people, how it prioritizes profit over humanity. He becomes Hollywood's worst nightmare, an insider willing to expose the whole system. Most industry analysts think we're heading toward some combination of scenarios 1 and 2. Will continue working, but on his own terms, with projects that align with his values. He'll be less commercial but more fulfilled. He'll make less money but live more authentically. But there's a fourth scenario nobody's talking about publicly. Will could choose to walk away completely, retire from acting, focus on his spiritual practice, his family, his personal growth, simply exit the system entirely. That would be the ultimate nightmare for Hollywood. Not a cautionary tale about cancel culture, but a story about a man who achieved everything the industry has to offer and decided it wasn't worth the cost to his soul. The broader implications. Will's awakening matters beyond just his personal journey because it's happening at a pivotal moment for the entertainment industry.
Who your friends are, who you're with every day, will make or break your dreams.
Streaming has disrupted traditional distribution. Social media has changed how celebrities interact with audiences. Younger generations value authenticity over polish. The old systems are already cracking. Will Smith's transformation accelerates that cracking. He's proof that the emperor has no clothes, that the machine only has power if people believe in it, that celebrities can survive and even thrive outside the traditional system. Other celebrities are watching, some with fear. They see what happened to Will and decide to stay in line. Others with hope. They see what Will is becoming and recognize a path to freedom. Hollywood wants this to be a cautionary tale. Look what happens when you step out of line. Look what happens when you stop performing. Look what happens when you choose authenticity over image. But for a growing number of entertainers, it's becoming an inspirational tale. Look how Will survived the machine turning on him. Look how he chose truth and found peace. Look how he's building something real after the illusion had collapsed. The awakening spreads. There are already signs that Will's journey is inspiring similar awakenings in other celebrities. Several high-profile stars have started working with the same spiritual teachers Will has studied with. Others are pushing back against their management teams more forcefully. Some are choosing authenticity over approval in ways that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. One A-list actress told her therapist, who later spoke anonymously to a journalist, "If Will Smith can survive losing everything and come out more at peace, maybe I don't need to keep pretending either." That sentiment is spreading quietly through Hollywood. And executives are terrified because they know their entire business model depends on celebrities staying trapped in the performance. Conclusion: why Hollywood fears the awakened Will Smith. So why is Will Smith's awakening Hollywood's worst nightmare? Let me count the ways. 1. He's too big to ignore. When someone of Will's stature starts questioning the system, people pay attention. 2. He's too rich to control. Financial pressure doesn't work on someone worth $350 million who doesn't need their next paycheck. 3. He's too honest to manipulate. The old tools of image management and PR don't work on someone committed to authenticity. 4. He's too influential to contain. Younger celebrities are watching his journey and getting inspired to choose their own paths. 5. He's living proof the system is optional. You can walk away from Hollywood's machine and not only survive, but thrive. 6. He knows where all the bodies are buried. 30 years inside the system means Will understands exactly how it operates and could expose it if he chose to. 7. He's found peace outside the performance. This might be the most threatening aspect of all. He's demonstrably happier now after losing his perfect image than he was when he had everything Hollywood values. That last point undermines the entire promise Hollywood makes to aspiring entertainers. Work hard, play the game, maintain your image, and you'll find success and happiness. Will did all of that and found emptiness. He lost everything and found peace. That's the story Hollywood cannot afford for people to believe, because if they do, the whole system starts to collapse. The final truth: Will Smith's awakening represents something profound and threatening to the entertainment industry. He's not just a celebrity who had a breakdown and recovered.
And when I found out that actors didn't like to travel, I knew that anybody who didn't like to travel was never going to beat me.
He's a man who saw through the illusion, rejected the performance, and chose authenticity even when it cost him everything the system values. He went from being Hollywood's perfect product to Hollywood's worst nightmare. From the Avatar to the Awakened. From performing love to actually finding it. From seeking approval to finding peace. And he did it all while the industry watched in horror, unable to stop him, unable to control him, unable to pull him back into the machine. The awakening of Will Smith isn't just his personal journey. It's a mirror being held up to an entire industry, forcing everyone to see what they've become. A machine that turns human beings into products. A system that rewards performance over authenticity. A business that consumes souls in pursuit of profit. Will saw all of that clearly, and he chose to walk away from it, even when walking away meant losing everything he'd spent 30 years building. That choice terrifies Hollywood because it proves something they never want anyone to believe. You don't need them. You can survive without their approval. You can choose truth over image and not just survive, but find actual peace. The slap that shocked the world wasn't the end of Will Smith's story. It was the beginning of his awakening. And that awakening is Hollywood's worst nightmare. So what do you think, gang? Is Will Smith's transformation genuine? Or is this just another performance? Has he really found peace? Or is he heading for another breakdown? And most importantly, what does his journey tell us about the cost of fame and the possibility of redemption? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this deep dive into Will's awakening opened your eyes to something you hadn't considered before, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're exposing the truth behind Hollywood's biggest stories, revealing what the mainstream media won't tell you. Who should we cover next? What other celebrity transformations deserve this level of analysis? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss when we drop the next explosive video. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay woke, stay questioning, and remember, sometimes losing everything is the only way to find out who you really are. Peace.